Welcome to the Big Biz Show.
Taking care of business.
You want fast-talking, hard-hitting discussions on business and finance? Maybe with a barroom slant and some really salty peanuts? We're not counting calories. We're counting cash. Before we get to the man with the financial plan, meet the money team. Costa, Mary, and Greg. Now Captain Finance himself, Sully.
On another beautiful day in sunny Southern California. Hope you guys are having a great one. We certainly are. I am voting, and I'm going to petition the powers that be to take that picture of me in that small.
No, that's a great picture. That stays.
My favorite.
That stays.
That's sausage.
Were you at the Ascot shop?
In La Jolla, California?
You have to buy this shirt because you were pushing maximum density between the top and the bottom. There.
Yeah, they are.
You put somebody's eye out with those buttons like that.
Our mutual friend Andy, who is the owner, came to me and said, "Yeah, you ripped that shirt. You're buying it, kid."
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Great.
You look somewhat. I know last week we were calling you a tan sweater, and you're wearing the tan sweater again.
Yeah, it's
but you look tanner. Did you have an experience over the weekend? Did you go somewhere? Because I think we have some rare footage from a hotel. Or are we ready to show that yet, or should we show that tomorrow?
I think it's in the editing bay still. Really, okay.
I just want to know.
I just want to say I don't know what you're talking about.
I just want to know why you had a meeting.
I mean, it's just catching up with people. You know, they're always saying you got to check in. And that's all I was doing.
I just heard tell about some stuff.
Okay.
Howie Font, our punk-trepreneur, otherwise known as Crash. Hey, Howie, great to have you. I hope you had a great weekend. I have a question for you. You talked to us last week about non-compete agreements. About 30 million Americans have non-compete agreements. In California, we gave up on that boast about 20 years ago because non-compete agreements are not enforceable here in California. It's basically under the guise of if you spend your time at a workplace learning a skill and you start your own business, you should be able to take the risk and start your own business because learning a skill that you got paid for doesn't necessarily mean that you stole it. It means that you went through life and learned some skills. Now, on the other hand is you come in one day, figure out how the sausage is made or figure out how the KFC chicken is made and quit the next day and start your own thing. That's another story. Talk about the difference because the FTC is square in the bullseye on this regarding regarding not NDAs but non-competes. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, you're bringing me right there by mentioning NDAs or non-disclosure agreements and then trade secret laws. So even though non-competes are now not going to be allowed in the rest of the country in the states that don't have rules on it, you still can have an NDA and you still have trade secret laws protecting you. So someone can't take the 7 herbs and spices and bring it to the next place.
Is it 7 herbs and spices? Wait, excuse me, hold on. We have a correction here, Mike. What's the herbs and spices again?
It's 11, Howard.
11,
it's
okay.
11.
I might need to be fact.
It's not 7. It's Mike. Well, he wouldn't even see this. Mike goes like it was almost like a penalty flag was thrown up in the air at a football game. If you get the wrong amount of spices in his fried fast food,
please,
you're going to get busted for it. It's 11. Do you know? Can you name 6 of the 11?
Sage, mustard, garlic, salt, pepper.
You know this?
Cumin.
How does he know this?
Oh yeah, because I've tried to replicate. I may have tried to replicate before.
Oh my God, Howie, when you talk about non-disclosure and non-compete, talk about what that does to someone who leaves a job, goes to the next job. Is that a difficult transition?
Yeah, so it affects, in particular, a lot of programming jobs or a lot of jobs where you have a client list. So you don't want your lead salesperson going and taking, your top 10 clients or the people that they interacted with the most.
Well, that's wait. That's a whole other story, though. That's client poaching. That's customer poaching. Hang on a second. I'm keeping you.
Sure.
Start it off. Let's start the show off because you've got non-disclosure of, Mike's potato chip problem in the back.
Yeah.
Can't talk about that. You've got trade secrets.
Right.
You've got competition.
Yes.
And now you got client poaching.
Oh yeah.
That's like 4 different things. Does that fall into one thing? And where do we stand?
Your clientele.
Do you know where I stand on client poaching?
Where?
Firmly on its neck. Stealing my customers.
I feel like if you've developed a relationship with them, you can steal them. They wouldn't be with. Look, you stole me.
If you didn't have the
It is time for the Sports Biz Minute, brought to you by the great folks at Prize Picks, the #1 daily fantasy platform out there. So easy to sign up. Just go to prizepicks.com. All right, we start off with some Legos. That's right, Nike and Lego have a new multi-year global partnership that will begin in 2025, which will likely see a series of co-branded products, content, and experiences. No specific plans have been unveiled yet for any Nike properties or athletes that may be involved with the effort. Football news out of San Francisco. The 49ers have announced a new partnership with Foliati Casino. It's a Mexico-based casino brand with more than 15 years of market leadership. The collab marks the first of its kind across the league and underscores the team's ongoing commitment to bringing the team closer to its Mexican fan base. And finally, the Dallas Cowboys are going to head to Cleveland to face the Browns in Week 1 to kick off their 24th season. And Tom Brady's tenure as Fox Sports lead NFL analyst. This Sunday, September 8th matchup will be featured on America's Game of the Week with Brady in the broadcast booth alongside lead NFL on Fox play-by-play man voice Kevin Burkhardt. That is your Sports Biz Minute, brought to you by Prize Picks. Simply sign up at prizepicks.com. Once again, here is Sully.
Let's count how soon he mutes me.
I didn't mute you.
This episode.
I didn't mute you.
Yeah, it's called it's a technical snafu. It happens.
Okay, I have a question. You mentioned that. So we're talking to Howie Fawn here from New York City, talking to us about non-competes. The non-compete ban failed in courts, okay? So in other words, you cannot enforce a non-compete agreement in any of the 50 states so far, pending appeal. It hasn't been that way in several states anyway, like San Diego, or I beg your pardon, California, the failed Republic of San Diego, California. And then we talked about a couple of things. You've got a non-disclosure agreement, you got trade secrets, you've got non-compete, but then you also have client poaching. And Mary said, wait, if I created a relationship with them, why shouldn't I be able to take them with me on my next job? My response to that is, you wouldn't have a relationship with them had I not started a business for you to have a relationship with.
Very valid point.
The reason why I'm here is because I was in an agency that we weren't getting along necessarily.
I didn't poach the client, I poached the employee.
Okay.
I poached you as an employee.
But you were my client.
Doesn't matter,
there.
you didn't poach me, I poached you. Different story. Brick wall. Listen.
I mean,
those pesky facts get in the way every time. Listen, honestly, I was looking.
I was 4 minutes away from calling you too. So
yeah,
I was going to poach
woulda,
you.
shoulda, coulda, but
Hearsay, Your Honor.
Listen, here's the real story. She was a social media expert at a company.
Yep.
When we were playing one of the biggest festivals, kind of our first kind of little hit thing, as a band, Mary was our person. Okay, and I remember saying after it was all over, God, man, we need somebody like that. And then tried to hire the same company that did the thing. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you were still working with us, or were you gone by that point?
I was working with
you. The guy turned out to be a total douchebag. And sorry, did you hear that?
Truth.
Delta Bravo.
Train just went by.
Yeah.
And then you disappeared, and I'd looked for you for 2 years. I sent the old email, got kicked back. I was with, it was a very big deal at the time on talk radio here.
I hear you.
I was with the mayor at the yacht club, walking through, and he's a member of the yacht club.
Sure.
But it was basically a drinking barbecue. Don't get excited. We were on a big yacht or anything like that. So I was walking through, and some lady came up and said, hey, you're Sully from Kogo. You used to work with my daughter, or sister. Sister.
Yeah.
I go, who's that? She was Mary Bird Godwin. I literally, that day, tried to email her, and that's how we got back together. So I poached you as an employee, though.
Yes, but I was about to call you because I was parting ways with them, and I thought, who are my clients? I wanted to connect with again, and you were
Pinocchio.
Thank you. What did Pinocchio do? I told lies.
Okay, let's just say, for the sake of argument,
I'm a real boy.
that I called you first. Let's just say, for the sake of this conversation.
And you poached me?
Yes, and you were like, yeah, I really liked working with you. I didn't like your boss and those other people. I liked you, so we would go work together.
That's fine.
So what?
On the client side, that's fine. But on the company side you're working for, I would argue he would have something to say about that. Right. And he would say this: well, sure, he likes you. You offered him for less money. You schmoozed him. You made me look bad, and I think that's a thing. Now, whether it's valid or not, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's about the cost of defense.
When's the last time you signed a radio contract? Was it when you were doing terrestrial?
I never did.
You never did.
I'll tell you why. So I ran an investment banking firm.
Right.
Okay. And they wanted me on the air, and I said, sure, I'll go on radio, whatever. as long as it's after market hours.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not signing a contract. I don't need to sign a contract. I'll be there every day. You want me, I don't want you. I didn't want it. I went from not being on the radio in January to being afternoon drive in 6 months. It was the most golden radio career you ever could imagine. I mean, it's the luckiest thing. I didn't spend overnights at KLFU, Arkansas, even once. I went from not being on the radio to being on the radio. And I was a good pet to have around because obviously I knew about business, and I spent more time in the boss's office talking about, hey, what should we do, versus on the radio. So I had my foot one in and one out, and never ever signed a deal, never had an agent negotiate my own stuff, because I figured out how much money they were making on commercials and my show and how much they were paying me. And I said, I'll give you the show for free. I'll build my own studio. You keep all the advertising. I just want billboards brought to you by Mary's social media, brought to you by Mike's Tequila Factory.
Sure.
And that's how I was paid.
See, mine,
I kept all the advertising.
Mine have always had non-competes in them, which means if I got laid off or quit a job, I could not immediately that next day go across.
They can't do that.
The competition.
That's not enforceable.
Well, but they have.
Howie, talk about that. Where do we stand on that, other than firmly on Mike?
Who can I sue, Howie?
Yeah, I mean,
The largest media entertainment company in the world. Good luck with that.
In California, for individuals like yourself, it should be very straightforward. Non-competes, not enforceable, blanket, period. Now, there are things in California where if you're acting as an entity, if my LLC has a contract with your LLC and we make payments that way as client, and it's not
But that's business to business. That's not employee related. Now, and that's something to talk about, because not only do you have employees, and you also have what are called subcontractors, otherwise known as 1099, which, by the way, is becoming very, very much scrutinized. The only reason there are 1099 employees is if you do the same job somewhere else in your life every single week. Otherwise, you don't pass the sniff test, because what a lot of small employers do is they categorize their employees or their people as subcontractors, so they don't have to pay that Social Security tax, which is an extra 7.75% of what you pay them. And so that's why people kind of skirt that issue. Plus, folks that work for you don't want to have it because they got to have taxes taken out of their wages. They're taking home less money. So 1099 subcontractor employees, they're really scrutinizing. But that's a whole different story, though, Howie. Because that's another business that you're doing business with. You're writing a check not to the person. You're writing a check to, Mike Costa's Radio Services or whatever. And the point is then you're talking about trade secrets again. That's a completely different story. So does this FTC ruling float down into subcontractor arrangements, or is it just for employee-employer relationships?
Oh, no, it's everything. The only exception right now that's going to be grandfathered in is senior executives that currently have them. They're going to stay, but moving forward, new senior executive non-competes, not enforceable.
So how do you build confidence in an employee?
Right.
How do you build confidence in an employee that knows everything about how you're doing things, and realizing that you're going to have to fight to argue that it's a trade secret versus a compete, right? Because the one side's going to say, hey, that's a trade secret. The other side's going to say, no, it's not. I'm just competing with you. And that's going to fill our courts, if I'm not mistaken.
And it did the very next day. We had several lawsuits just the day after the rule was proposed. It was proposed in January, passed 3-2 by the FTC Commission in April, and now it was supposed to go in force at the end of the month, but it looks like it's going to be delayed. They've lost the first appeal, or they've lost the first round. They'll go to appeal, and it's probably going to go to the Supreme Court.
Howie, thanks, buddy. Catch up. Have you ever been sued by an employer like that? Does anybody? I mean, I would not dare sue.
Not yet.
I mean, if you look at, and Mary knows this, if we did a deep dive into employee rights versus employer rights, and even if an employee steals from you, allegedly, they can still file for unemployment. If he hit you square in the mouth and you got fired, he can still file for unemployment. Yeah. That you're paying a higher.
And who ends up winning in the long run? The attorneys.
Yeah.
True.
That's it.
Well, I think it's interesting though, because there are really four factions here. It's not just non-compete.
Right.
It's the client poaching. It's the trade secrets. I think it's really
client poaching is a whole nother.
Yeah, and the trade secret thing is very interesting because unless it's IP and intellectual property, what are you really poaching? My business model. I remember I was the very first human in the universe to do a webcast with a CEO. Had to pay $5,000 to broadcast.com to hold the server so that 50 people could listen.
Oh, wow.
Guy in my office started a company doing the exact same thing and does it to this day.
Now Zoom.
Do you want I take him out or what?
Well, that's why I bring it up, because I know a guy that knows a guy that knows a guy. All right, are you a preparedness thinker?
Sometimes.
I've got a red backpack that has 45-day supply of water and a red duffel bag that has a 45-day of food. And
You do?
First aid supplies. Yeah, the guy was a guest at my show a while ago.
You're going to be a hero to Joe Reek.
I didn't buy it.
I didn't know about that.
It takes the space of a duffel bag and a backpack. 45 days, I can hole up. I might just do that starting tomorrow. No Instacart. I will still have my cell phone though. Big Biz Show, see you in a minute.
Loft 100 Studios, The Big Biz Show, our affiliates, and our hosts are not registered investment advisors or broker-dealers.
Our show hosts make no commitment that the purchase of securities of companies profiled or otherwise mentioned in our programming
are suitable or advisable for any persons, or that investment in such securities would be profitable in general.
Given the nature of our company's profile and the lack of an active trading market for their securities, and investing is highly speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We profile selected publicly traded and privately held companies on our program.
Most of these companies that we profile have provided compensation to Loft 100 Studios and its hosts for the profile coverage.
3, 2, 1. From time to time, we sell shares of the companies profiled in the open market that we receive as compensation for coverage of client companies.
But never sell stock if we are speaking about, interviewing, or covering a public company who has paid compensation.
Specific questions on compensation can be obtained by contacting producer at sullyandgroup.com.
Listeners should verify all claims and do their own due diligence before investing in any securities mentioned on this program.
Investing in securities is speculative and carries a high degree of risk.
We encourage our investors to invest carefully. Duh.
And read the investor information available on the website.
On the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, at www.sec.
Or the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, FINRA, at www.finra.org.
The Big Biz Show for the Loft 100 Studios in sunny, beautiful, sometimes humid Southern California.
David Garofalo has been our gold expert on the program a number of times. Chairman and CEO of a company called Gold Royalty Corp. Their stock symbol GROY, but he joins us here to talk about what is there a fallout that happens with you in the positive direction, David? When we saw what happened with the trading recently, where the bottom falls out. It's a correction. It goes back to values we had in May, which doesn't sound so bad, but suddenly gold is, as you predicted, suddenly back on top of the heap because there's been a ton of buying even through the Fed. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the fundamentals for gold are really being driven by expanded monetary policy, low interest rates for a long period of time, and the continued expansion of money supply. But when you see corrections like this in equity markets, like you saw in the dot-com bust back in the early 2000s, the great financial crisis, or more recently, what you're seeing is the baby being thrown out with the bathwater. All the equities are getting sold off, including the gold equities. But what happens inevitably after a correction like this in general equity markets is gold continues to march upwards, and the gold equities significantly outperform the general equity market. And they're on sale right now. They've been significantly underperforming the commodity, and there's going to be a significant and severe correction upwards for gold equities, but in particular, the royalty companies, as you correctly mentioned, because that provides unmitigated exposure to the gold price, completely protected from inflation and the cost structures that we see among the gold producers.
So interestingly enough, David, if you think in terms of what gold royalty companies do, in terms of being almost a financial institution for the mining business. And if you look in the past, even though the market's is going to rebound, I mean, if you go back to the Great Correction where the Dow was in territory below 5,000. Look at it now. We're in the 30,000s. If Dow was a great buy back then, it was a great buy now. But gold is going to survive this one. Gold is not going to have an inverse relationship with the stock market this time. Tell us why, because this is really important. Because many times gold has an inverse relationship with how well stocks are doing. Not this time.
Yeah, look, gold is volatile in the immediate periods, in the short term, but over a long period of time, it's been a one-way trade. Gold's gone from $35 an ounce to over $2,500 an ounce today since the U.S. government abandoned the gold standard in the 1970s, and the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar has gone down 96% over that period of time. So you are very well placed to be in gold really over the last 50 years. And you will continue to be well placed because the temptation to expand money supply is just too great for central banks and governments to do, particularly when they're dealing with so much debt on their balance sheet. Global debt to GDP is 350%. The only thing they can do is devalue the currency in order to devalue the debt. There's no fiscally responsible way for them to repay the debt. So gold's going to march upwards regardless of what happens in the general equity markets.
David Garofalo, Chairman, CEO, Gold Royalty Group, ticker symbol GROY, with us here in the Big Biz. David, is there one country that is gold mining, gold exploration, gold royalty friendlier than all the rest out there? Where is the United States as far as that is concerned in being your friend, letting you get the stuff out of the ground?
Yeah, I think it depends on the state. And it's interesting. There's an economic think tank here in Canada, the Fraser Institute, that actually ranks jurisdictions globally based on mineral potential, low regulatory risk, and low political risk. Nevada tends to be in the top 5 in the world every year.
California, by the way, just below Serbia. Gas prices.
Actually, I'll take Serbia any day. California.
Boy, I said nobody ever. Yeah. I'll get a T-shirt. I'll take Serbia every day. Yeah. Every day. So that's a great point, because we were talking to Patrick DeHaan from GasBuddy.com about gas prices, who's a consumer advocacy group regarding gas prices. And what's interesting here is if you think in terms of friendly states, California is not one of them. But is there government intervention in mining? I can't imagine what the reason would be, or other than maybe environmental?
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly in every major jurisdiction, you're going to have an environmental regulatory process that you have to go through to demonstrate you're going to be building responsibly, and you have the financial assurance in place to ultimately close the mine and remediate the land. But increasingly, where there's strategic metals, you're seeing expropriation in sneaky ways, not just taking the asset outright, but raising tax rates to an exorbitant level such that the economic rents really are de minimis to the owner of the property. They really end up in the hands of the government. And so you're seeing that type of thing in strategic metals, in copper, zinc, the metals that are required for battery metals in the more difficult jurisdictions that we operate as mining companies in the world.
David, with your company, Gold Royalty Corp, is there a better time of the year for you than right now? Because I can't imagine, based upon a little bit of fear in the marketplace, fear index going. It's what you've been saying all year long. I mean, let's face it. And you've turned into a cash positive business. You've got yourself a decent market cap right now that's only going to get better. But my question is, when you see the fear index go up and you see the volatility of the market, there's no better time for guys like you, correct?
Yeah, look, I think fear, plays into gold in the short term, but I think longer term, it's really driven by economic fundamentals. I don't like ringing the fear bell all the time. Right. Yes, there's war in the Middle East, there's war in the Ukraine, and sure, there's a flight to safe haven currencies like gold in that environment, but that tends to be a short-term phenomenon. What really is driving gold and has driven gold for 50 years is the fact that governments can't help themselves. They can't help but print their currency and depreciate their currency. That's why the gold price has marched up irreversibly for 50 years and will continue to march upwards for 50 years. Fiat currencies are infinite in quantity. And gold is a very finite currency, and
we're just and we do it better than we're the least dirty shirt in the hamper at doing that, so to speak.
Well, David, thank you so much to buy Serbian gold, so I'm on board.
David, we'll see you. I'll talk to you soon. We'll see more David Garofalo on the program. David Garofalo, GROY, is our channel symbol, Gold Royalty Corp. I want to own a Gold Royalty Corp.
Yeah. Oh,
You guys do the work. I'll write the check and then make sure the proceeds come to me.
God.
Coming up, we're going to talk to an old...
In over 175 countries, all the ships at sea on the American Forces Network. We love our military. We always salute you for what you do for us. God bless you. It is the Big Biz Show from the Loft 100 Studios, Southern California. Costa, Mary Burt Godwin, and Sully.
125 million TV homes strong every weeknight and on the weekends. We're also on American Life Network as well as BizTV. And American Forces Network in 175 countries and all the ships to see, as Mike said, but also Bloomberg.
Oh, yeah.
El Financiero in Mexico has 15 million homes, as well as Bloomberg EU coming up in just 11 days. Be able to get us in stinky Europe. I said it. Stinky Europe. Where I like my drinks warm and my showers cold.
Where cigarettes are a food group.
How about some ice?
No.
How about a little bit of glacé? Sorry, that's ice cream.
Can I have some salt?
I endorsed this company at one point in my radio career.
Did you really?
Whether they knew it or not, I think it was through an ad agency.
Oh, I love it.
I ended up with a backpack full of, I think, a 45-day supply of food and water and things like a flare, a flashlight, first aid kit.
Yeah.
Those aluminum blanket type things. Yeah. Fantastic stuff. And it takes up the size of a, God, maybe a, those. It's literally the size of a duffel bag in a backpack. It takes no time in the garage. It's easy to get to. And I look at it probably once a month to see where it is. And I'm not a doomsday thinker. No, because I'm anal retentive and OCD, and I clean the garage all the time.
Oh.
Really, I swear to God. I'm keeping this. I'm keeping that. I'm definitely keeping it this time.
Yeah.
And what's interesting here is it is called the preparedness business.
Yep.
And it's emergency survival food. It's power generators, like Mary said. It's survival items. It's water filtration. It's you could plant a whole farm if the end came.
Sure.
And where I learned about it from is a company you've heard of. It's called My Patriot Supply. Joe Reek, I beg your pardon. Joe Reek is the VP of Sales for My Patriot Supply. He joins us here via Zoom. Am I now your hero now that I've got your stuff in my garage already, Joe? You like that, don't you?
Hey, you've been a hero way even before I knew that you had any type of emergency gear, but I like you that much more. How about that?
Is this, okay, look at, I have heard people say this is just smart business to have emergency water. Let's just talk about California and the fact that the big one's coming.
For sure
the earthquake. This is just good business, or is this crazy town Art Bell tinfoil hat? Because you, I know you get it all, buddy. I know you get both sides of it. Talk about that a little bit, because I want you to tell us why this is important and why everybody should be doing this.
You know, had you said that maybe 30 years ago, yeah, you would be considered one of those crazy preppers that nobody would ever really talk about. But now with what we've gone through, especially in the last several years, it's becoming more of a main thing where people aren't afraid to talk about getting prepared. It doesn't sound as a crazy idea. I mean, if you think about it, we have car insurance, but we don't buy car insurance hoping that we get into an accident. We have life insurance, but we don't have life insurance hoping that some major catastrophe is going to happen to us. That same idea is with emergency preparedness. We get prepared not because we're hoping for a doomsday or a zombie apocalypse. We get prepared because we know that things can happen. And especially depending on where you live, like being in California, you guys are naturally inclined to be prepared because of the earthquakes. Yeah. People on the eastern coast are more naturally inclined to be prepared for hurricanes, but it goes much deeper than that, especially with what's going on in the world. You know, even just a few years ago when we were hit with a global pandemic, people every day going grocery shopping would see the empty store shelves, and it would affect them right then and there. And so the entire world was affected by the supply chain issues, and everybody kind of realized that how fragile of a system it is that we currently live in. And it just makes sense to get prepared, because you never know what is going to happen, and whether that is a natural disaster or whether that is a global pandemic, or what if it's more closer to home? What if mom or dad gets sick and they can't work? They still have to provide for their loved ones and their kids.
I never even thought about that piece of this thing.
Joe, I was actually just thinking about you and was telling some of my friends that live in Los Angeles, just up the road here, because every day in my feed, there's a new earthquake happening. They're posting the magnitude of it. And I was like, you need to know about this company. And it's the big one is coming in California. We all feel that. So is this, where should they start? Should it be food? The water filtration is a big...
Yeah, and how much? I mean,
how much? Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, I have a generator I was telling these guys about at home that's a built-in generator that can run the house, the AC, the pool, have a full band there, a barbecue. It's more of a convenience issue for me. I'm not really prepping anything, but if the power goes out, which it does a lot in San Diego, I'm set. Now, that's a convenience issue. However, I see a generator over your right shoulder. Talk about Mary. Talk about it. Where's the place to start? Is it with the generator? Is it with a bunch of food? Is it with a bunch of water? What do you think?
That is a great question. And that's exactly what we do here at My Patriot Supply is we actually educate customers on what to do and how to get prepared. We understand that not every single family is going to be identical. Every single family has their own set of unique needs and things that they have to work towards. And so that's why it's so important that if you don't know how to get started or don't know even where to get started, you can actually call and speak with preparedness reps, preparedness specialists that can walk you through the individual needs of your family. And I know Mike mentioned too, well, how much supply do you need to have? Again, that's going to be based on your specific needs. Now, I'll tell you this though, about 15 years ago, the Red Cross always would recommend having at least a 72-hour supply of emergency food. And I'll tell you what, over the past several years,
that's going to take a lot of space in Mike's house. 72 hours of food for Mike, that's a full room, pal.
That's another house.
Cut back. Let's say he's got 16 cases of Funyuns.
It's still smart to have it though, but I'll tell you what, they keep bumping that up. And it's because what happens is whenever we are faced with a natural disaster, we see how slow the response is by the government. A lot of people have this idea that if they are involved in any type of an emergency, the government's just going to come bail them out. And unfortunately, if that's the idea of your emergency preparedness, you're probably not going to do very well because nobody's going to care more about your survival than yourself.
Can I ask you, what if there is a huge surge in demand? Because you guys are pretty visible. Hopefully you'll be more visible on this program. Let's just say that the country actually caught on, right? That they weren't going to procrastinate like we always do. Two questions. A, can you handle the demand at My Patriot Supply? Number two, what kind of investment are we talking about for an average family of four, and for how long does it last?
Okay, I'll take the first question. Now, because we are a preparedness company, it is our company motto to always be prepared. And so we do an exceptional job of managing our inventory. I mean, here in our headquarters here in Salt Lake City, our facility is about 450,000 square feet, and it is stocked. We also have several other distribution centers throughout the country, which help us do that 2-day delivery. So when you do place an order with us, you are expecting to receive your order within 2 business days. And it comes in plain cardboard boxes delivered right to your door, so it's very, very discreet. Now, I can't tell you if a major catastrophe is going to happen, how long this supply is going to last, but we want to make sure that we are always doing our best to make sure that we have the inventory available before the emergency happens. And that is what our mission statement is. That is what we work tirelessly day in and day out, is to make sure that we have what we say we're going to have, so especially when people are needing these items. Now, you talk about cost savings. Well, here's the thing with emergency food.
You got a 4-week supply there. Stop where you're scrolling, guys. 2-week supply, 4-week supply of emergency food, 2,000 plus calories, $237. Come on. You spend more than that on Slim Jims and Funyuns, Mike.
I do.
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely.
You get a mega 3-month emergency supply, which has food and protein, 2,500 calories a day, and everything else that goes along with it for $750. It seems to me that if you could feed your family for $250 a month and have all the protein, everything else, and by the way, they provide the water.
Yes.
Okay. The water's in little bags. At least Mike, and I got those buckets. I got 3 of those buckets in a duffel bag. Mm-hmm. I got the rest of the stuff in a backpack. It takes 0 space up. It's fantastic.
Yeah, very, very convenient. And that's the thing too, is it's if you really do the math on it, it's very, very affordable. And we even make it even easier for customers as well. We have an option where if there's a certain package that you want, and we know that money is tight, especially in today's economy, you can actually buy that and spread out your payments over a period of 2 to 5 months to help it easier to get the items that you really do want. We don't charge any interest on that. We don't do any types of credit check, but this is our way to kind of give back and help people get better prepared. Because again, once you have that preparedness, very powerful.
Joe, good stuff. You need to come back. So, I want you to come back in a couple weeks, talk about the generators and the big water thing you have behind you and the whole thing. I mean, it's not just food and water. Buddy, thanks so much. Joe Reek is his name. My Patriot Supply, mypatriotsupply.com. Okay, Mike. And by the way, don't be dipping in. You know, you get this stuff. This isn't midnight. Go to the garage, maybe take out a packet and boil some water time.
And then the big one hits, and my family's like,
Mike's got a Bunsen burner out in the back of his trunk. Midnight. That's it. Took up some mac and cheese.
That Tuscan bean salad looked pretty good, right?
Tuscan bean salad has never looked good.
It looked good. I'm starving.
Armageddon never tasted better.
My Patriot Supply. Armageddon never tasted so good. Big Biz Show.
From the Loft 100 studios in beautiful sunny Southern California. As always, thank you for being along for the ride. That ride is the Big Biz Show. Costa, Greg Todoroff, and our man
the Large
Sully.
Financial Program.
Otherwise known as the Large Financial Program.
Listen to the Day Trader Trio.
So good.
You guys sound good. James East, Trace Sojourns, Hodgins, and of course, Brian Jordan. And yeah.
Phenomenal.
I'm not going to, I'll ask later. Do you guys find yourselves, you know, I make a living, pardon me, talking about the stock market, right? And I have somebody who handles most of my pile, okay? Mm-hmm. But when I see days like we've had the last couple of days, and stuff just doesn't make sense, I get pissy.
Good.
But not that I'm Superman, but I'm saying even if I get pissy, doesn't it prove the point that market runs on two emotions? Fear and greed.
Well said.
It is, though.
Well said.
And what I want to talk about, of course, Mike Taylor is our investment banking specialist here. What I want to know is if the markets are truly run on institutional trading. Would that be accurate to say? If I'm buying 500 shares of Apple, I'm not really affecting the market, am I?
No.
It's the guys on the top that are affecting it. Yeah. Are those guys necessarily buying into fear and greed, or are they buying into what we talked about before, buying the rumor, selling the news, in your opinion?
Yeah, fear and greed are in their calculations. I mean, Mike can say it more appropriately, but you know, they'll take your meme stock, your GameStop rise, and short it, and they'll make money off your fear and greed. You will be wrong, and they will make money.
So let's talk about higher on the food chain, and that is venture capital, investment banking, and private equity, which is prior to companies going public, or they could do a side financing while they're public. One such company that you represent is Northwest Biotherapeutics, and Les Goldman has been a regular on this show for what, 5 years?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Talk about the mechanics of a publicly traded company with the bullets whizzing overhead every day, and they're having to run a company, they're trying to get the FDA to approve what they're doing, and they're trying to raise money at the same time. Now, I can't think of a harder road to hoe. It's going to be 7 years if we make this work before we get revenue. How about it? I mean, if you think about it, how does that even work? And by the way, there's lots of people living on the top of the hill and on the beach that did invest in that. Yeah. So talk about that a little bit, Mike. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's a fascinating part of the market that typically in a biotech company, you're right, it's a 7-year lead time. It's very hard for the average retail investor to say, well, wait a second, I can go buy Tesla stock now and make money tomorrow. But in the venture capital markets, private equity, they can have a little bit of a longer lead time. They can stay in it for a longer period of time or be more patient, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. But in the case of Northwest Biotherapeutics, this is a wonderful company that has a personalized cancer vaccine. Normally, you're going through stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. There's a very costly.
And let's not forget, it's for GBM. It's pretty significant what they're talking about.
Yeah, but with this company, they're through the science.
Yeah.
It has been proved out. So they're at the end of that. They don't have to prove it anymore. It works.
Well, what's interesting, we'll have Steve Brady on the air with us a little bit later, but as we're going down the road of these biotech firms and how they're doing with stage 2 top line data, stage 3, it feels like we're getting closer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And at the same time, we interview folks all the time, I can't remember who it was, that said, as good as it sounds, we're only curing 8% of cancer right now.
A couple of them have alluded to that.
Yeah, so the point is, though, when you hear about something like Northwest Bio, I start to think, okay, They got it figured out. How do you convince the next investor to come in? Because it ain't happening tomorrow. At some point, they'll have a larger biopharma company either take them out and take them to market, or they'll do it themselves. But what I don't understand, never could understand, and obviously it happens every single day because we have pharmaceuticals every single day, is that how does a biopharma company in an early stage continue to keep money in the pipeline because they're not selling syringes in the meantime? I mean, they have no revenue model. Is it just a different expectation from the beginning? And if so, how do you get stage 2 in? How do you get stage 3 in?
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the key, and that's where venture capital and private equity comes in, because they're buying into the company. So this is a publicly traded company, but it's a private investment, so we call it a PIPE. And that allows that venture capital money to come in at a very attractive valuation, and because they're in at that attractive valuation, they can be more patient for that big payoff on the back end, where the individual investor just won't be able to.
Okay, Mike, you just talked about how close they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just to your point there, JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association.
Yep.
What was the ASCO, the convention?
ASCO.
I mean, they've been published as like you don't get an article in JAMA unless you're getting that.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's a disconnect between market perception, what's going on with value, and what's going on with the company. But it really is like, it's as close as we've ever been to.
Is it then expected that as you get to that 11th hour, that there's going to be a whole bunch of money that comes screaming in because now word is getting around?
Sure.
They're going to take it across the goal line.
Yeah, that's likely to happen. And you see that as they get through those stages and they get closer to the goal line, you have additional investment dollars. But those dollars that come in the later stages, they're buying in at a higher valuation.
I was going to say, so what you're talking about, because I think this is an important factor, there's only 2 times a public company gets money. An IPO and when they exit the deal. They could certainly do a secondary. So what you're talking about is when there's more money coming in, it's going to the stock market.
Right.
And you buy a share of Northwest Biotherapeutics or Apple, they don't get that money.
That's right.
It's an auction.
Yeah. Right.
So what's interesting is, and it brings up the other conversation. If you were going to invest a pile of money into a company that's almost there, wouldn't you have incentive to drive the stock price down? I mean, here's
truth be told.
Twin Peaks music.
I like it.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Or on the other hand, if you were going to invest in a company, on the outside, what would you call a pipe?
You want to do it at the lowest possible price.
I'd whack that thing and push the thing like Friday the price was $1. It's 50 cents today. I'm going to get more from. How do they control that?
I think of the whole Law and Order thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, for the average investor, because I think it's important. I mean, after you think about the credit default swaps in movies like The Big Short and so on and so forth, it widened open to say it's not just this gray thing that happens in Wall Street.
Yeah.
It's a math equation, and it's happening.
It does happen.
And that's called manipulation. And by the way, how's that drug war going? It's happening in Wall Street. Manipulation happens every single day.
Yeah. At size, it's not so much this just automatic price too. You have to go find the actual people, and like you were saying, you kind of have to break out the risk and find people that are okay with this amount of risk and okay with less, and they're gonna have to pay a higher.
You make a really great point. You make a great point because
how hard is that process?
Yeah, you make a great point because there's only one thing that makes a stock go up.
Buying.
More buying. There's only one thing that makes a stock go down. Now, there's 1,000 reasons that you buy a stock. But what's interesting is, even though you wanted to drive the price down, you'd have to find buyers for it, right?
Right. That's right.
Well,
and to Howie's point, I think with Northwest Bio, and what makes this so attractive is that a lot of this deal has been de-risked because they're past the science. They've gone through the science.
So
I love the word de-risk.
But you're right, though. There's different flavors for different investors depending on where the stage is in their development. So.
Yep.
Well, I'll tell you what. More to come from NWBO. They'll be with us next week. You'll be with us next week. Mike Taylor, thanks so much for your help on this stuff.
Glad I could be on with you.
Demystified.
I think it's the first time we've been on together.
So wait, you two aren't the same person.
No. I don't throw in touch of gray and switch my jacket.
Because you're 18 years old. You don't need to. You just started shaving last year.